Most people are aware that psychology has a complicated history. In their attempts to understand and treat mental illness, psychologists sometimes embraced methods that actually hurt people, such as lobotomies, chemical castration, and electroshock therapy. Today, we think things are better, that psychology has grown into a mature science with a robust understanding of the human mind. But what if this isn't the case? What if psychologists are still blinded to certain truths of the human condition and are still harming people without realizing what they're doing? Abraham Maslow is considered one of the most prominent psychologists of all time. He's most famous for his hierarchy of needs, which suggested that self actualization is the ultimate goal of human life. Most psychology students learn about this in school, and most psychologists agree that human beings have a deep need to be fulfilled. But what most people don't realize is that Abraham Maslow's work is much deeper than a simple pyramid. In the later stages of his career, he interviewed dozens of high performing individuals to discover what peak human performance looked like. In his books, he shared that the individuals he studied displayed characteristics that were very different from the average person, which suggested that there was more to human nature than psychologists realized. Based on this work, Abraham Maslow became very critical of mainstream psychology, which he believed to be focused on pathologizing and diagnosing issues instead of helping people grow into their fullest selves. He also believed that taking averages across populations was blinding psychologists to the true potential of human beings. But unfortunately, the only idea of his that found lasting influence was his hierarchy of needs. Since Maslow's early work on self actualization, developmental psychologists discovered that human consciousness does not merely change in content over time, it evolves in structure. They discovered that there are three major stages of consciousness that human beings can possess. They called these preformal consciousness, formal consciousness, and postformal consciousness. Preformal consciousness is characterized by intuitive, concrete, and emotionally driven thinking with limited capacity for abstraction. Individuals at this stage tend to interpret reality through personal experience, authority figures, and immediate social norms. Beliefs are often held rigidly and are strongly shaped by family, culture, and group identity. Formal consciousness involves the emergence of abstract and logical reasoning. Individuals with this stage of consciousness can think hypothetically, analyze arguments, and apply logic to their thinking. Many psychologists consider this to be the peak of human development, and for that reason, it's the focus of mainstream education and a lot of therapy and coaching. But developmental psychologists discovered that there is a third stage of consciousness. This is called post-formal consciousness, and it is characterized by integrative and reflective thinking that can hold multiple perspectives at once. People at this stage of development are able to reflect more deeply about themselves, foster stronger relationships with others, and lead change in complex environments. Their perspective of the world is more nuanced, and their sense of self extends beyond their cultural conditioning. This very closely mirrors what Maslow discovered in his work with high performing individuals. The research has shown that people with post-formal consciousness possess advanced mental, emotional, and relational capacities. They perceive the world in more nuanced ways and have a deeper understanding of themselves. They are more effective leaders, better parents, better partners, and better friends. Most psychological research conducted today takes averages across a sample of the population. But the problem is that only 15% of the population possesses post-formal consciousness, and only about 2% of the population has achieved the highest stages of growth. We can also infer that 98% of psychologists are operating within formal consciousness, or the early stages of post-formal consciousness. This means that they aren't aware of what they are missing out on by not focusing their efforts on highly developed individuals. This means that Abraham Maslow was correct in what he was saying. The current research methods used by psychologists are blinding us to the truth about human nature and to the truth of humanity's full potential. By taking averages across the population, Psychologists have unknowingly given us a more pessimistic view of human nature than what is actually true and what is actually possible. And this is why psychologists cannot measure what they cannot perceive. Now, if you're interested in these kinds of things, I'm actually conducting a study. I've developed a series of 6 guided journals which are designed to give people the capacities they need to develop post-formal consciousness. And what I'm doing in my study is I'm giving people 3 assessments to complete. I'm giving them the journals to complete, which takes about 3 to 4 months. And then I'm going to be taking the assessments again so we can measure growth in consciousness, wisdom, and well-being. If this is something you're interested in, you can contact me via email, zachary@zacharystrong.net, and I can set you up with the assessments and get you access to the journals. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found this to be interesting.